Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the NAAC Conversation. My name is Mara Hezdovic, and I serve as the chair for the NAAC Marketing and Strategic Communications Committee. I have with me Chris Fowler, NAAC President. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Mara.
We're excited to have you today. We've invited Chris to help talk about what NAAC is doing during this time to acknowledge the public health crisis that has impacted our industry and our compliance community. So Chris, I've teed up a few questions for you and would ask that you touch on your experience at the Army West Point, but also your experience as NAAC president.
Yeah, thank you, Mara. So obviously this has been, a first-time experience that all of us are going through together. I think in athletics, there are a lot of unique experiences, and particularly this is one that we're all going through together at the same time. And so there's some comfort and there's some strength in that solidarity. And I think as compliance professionals, we often pride ourselves in that sort of solidarity of being in the industry and compliance professionals together. So, to come back to your question on what is NAAC doing, we're continuing to push forward and in a lot of the same ways that we have as an organization over the past decade, right? We're continuing to bring education to our membership. We're going a little bit more virtual, just like everybody's going a little bit more virtual, hence our conversation here today and some of the other ones we've already put out, our weekly Twitter chats where our membership can engage in those conversations. And then I think, as we always have tried to be, and might be a little bit more behind the scenes, right? Because we're going through this as an industry together. But as we know, one of the mission, vision, and values of NAAC is that we try to be the voice, the national voice for our organization. And we continually partner with the NCAA. And in these times of COVID, where we're having to rewrite the playbook or call an audible, where the NCAA leadership continues to engage the NAAC board, the NAAC officers, and then we're able to engage groups of our membership to provide quick feedback when we're talking about a Q&A document that's updated every Friday, or what do we need to be considering, and those sorts of things. So I think that's just a good reminder of the value of our organization and how we represent the industry even during this time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And is there advice that you have for compliance professionals and NAAC members as we navigate, as you point out, this uncertain time, advice that you have for things that we should prioritize and be focused on as we navigate, again, this uncertainty?
Right. Yeah, I think there's some of the same things that we always talk about, whether it be at our national convention or throughout the year as an organization, but I can't underscore it enough to say, use your personal and your professional network and your community of people, right? Like these, it's hard to be working from home, sheltering in place, not being able to walk down the hallway and pop into a coach's office or grab a colleague or pop into your coworker's office. And so it looks different, right? Like it looks different now than 6 weeks ago, right? But it underscores the importance and the value to keep engaged with that community, because at the end of the day, we're not in this alone, right? And I think, again, I go back to that's one of the values of compliance professionals. We will lie, steal, and cheat from each other with every good form, every good educational tip or trick or video or anything. And that's the foundation of who we are as professionals and as an organization. And so don't let it stop at this time, right? Use the NAAC community. And hey, what are you all doing for your online end of the year meetings? I think was one of the most recent questions. But I think if I had one piece of advice to compliance professionals, to our NAAC community, is this is a time to shine. And I say that because I have always considered one of the characteristics of great compliance professionals is that they are outside the box thinkers, right? And we know that. coach comes in and asks a question like, how do I do this? And it's like, well, it can't be A to B, but it can be A to C. We can get to the end results, right? And we do that by thinking outside the box. And so I would say, who is better prepared to think outside of this box when, as a country, as a university or a college, but as an athletic department, to think outside the box and to really shine in that space, right? Like to be able to say, yeah, we've been utilizing technology, or this is how we've gone about, engaging or quizzing our coaches, or utilizing the apps, or stuff like that. And so I kind of reflected on that, and I think because that is a characteristic of great compliance professionals, what better time to shine, right? What better time to help some of our colleagues in an athletic department that may not be as technically savvy as compliance folks are, because you have to be. You have to be effective, you have to be efficient, you have to maximize every minute of monitoring in your day. And so I would say find some of those silver linings, some of those spaces where you can, showcase your outside the box thinking and shine. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that advice. I think you acknowledge the need to be creative with technology and find ways as compliance administrators to show our value in our athletic department, but also community. So
right.
Appreciate that. And you mentioned convention, and so I'm going to bring that up. What is NAAC doing with the decision that NACDA made regarding convention in Vegas? What is NAAC doing to help translate that experience virtually, but still more importantly, give that education to our members?
Yeah, great question. So obviously with the news coming from NACDA that the in-person convention wouldn't happen, we had already sort of been talking about it very preliminarily as a convention committee and as a board, right? And now it's just kicking it into high gear and figuring out what the levers we're going to pull and everything like that. And we're going to be engaging. The convention committee was already putting together a top-notch slate of session programming and opportunities. And now, again, it's that outside the box thinking of, how do we take a half-day mentoring program and do it virtually, and, figuring out the right timing, right? Like, again, this new normal that we're all adjusting to. We've all been on more Zoom calls, more Teams calls, more WebEx calls, more video conferencing in the past 6 weeks than we probably had been in our careers combined. But that just because we're not meeting in person doesn't mean that we can't create the same opportunity for networking, for mentoring, for the programming. It's just finding the right balance, right? And engaging our membership on what does that look like now that you're in your new normal? Is it, do we need to spread it out from 3 days to 3 weeks? Do we need to? And then furthermore, how do we spread it out throughout the entire academic year, right? Like it doesn't, our convention is 3 days where we come together and it packs a punch, but now we need to reinvent ourselves a little bit, right? And how do we continue to make it relevant to the time that we're in, but then what are those staples that we need throughout the year? So the convention committee is already working really hard under Mac Jacobsey's leadership from Mizzou, and then the board is engaging with them and the officers are engaging. So I think we'll be very excited to bring forth a virtual opportunity for our membership that will still pack the punch of when we get together for 3-4 days in June. And that'll be next June, right?
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the decision that NAAC makes in the convention committee. Appreciate the work that, and the audible used the phrase describe convention too. Well, Chris, really appreciate you joining us today. I think your leadership, I want to thank you and the NAAC board, and the committees that make up the NAAC leadership for their additional work and extra hours right now, as we're all trying to manage the new normal. Hopefully it's more temporary than we expect Is there anything, any final message or any final advice you have? You've touched on some great points, but as we close out today, is there any final message that you have for the viewers and NAAC membership?
Yes, and you know what? I'll just kind of maybe copy a little bit of what we're talking about here at Army West Point, right? Like the banks of the Hudson are right behind me here on my Zoom call. So I wanted you all to really feel like you were with me at Army West Point. But we've talked a lot about it, and it's been sort of surreal at times and amazing to be surrounded by such great Army leadership. When you're talking about colonels and one-star generals and three-star generals and the way that they approach this process. But as we've trickled down into Army West Point athletics, the one thing that we've repeated over and over again is when we get to the other side of COVID, right? When we come out of COVID, what do we need to do to make sure that we're not just the same? And certainly everybody's going to be different on a variety of levels, right? We might never shake hands again. We might just be bumping elbows and, going through the handshake lines. And that might be a big change in athletics, but we've talked about how are we going to be better, right? And so it's taking the time and being intentional. I trust that everybody is going to master their time management skills, because they're not just going to be watching Netflix all day, or the new season of Ozark or things like that. But what we've said is this is the time as a department to go from good to great. And I think that transcends, our profession and our industry, right? So this is a great time for our NAAC membership, our compliance professionals, to go from good to great, right? It's a great time to take some additional training, or to become an expert on how to do Zoom calls and then record, do presentations or anything like that. And so that resonates with me, and I think it's simple but profound and impactful. And to make sure that you're continuing to grow, that you're investing in yourself, that you're going from good to great, that you're staying sharp, that you're staying connected, because whether this is another 6 weeks or another 2 weeks or another couple, whatever it is, right? You want to look back, and hindsight is always 2020, to make sure that that you weren't stagnant, that you continued to grow, you continued to develop, and that's going to look differently, right, than if you're going into the office every day and connecting with people. And so thinking outside the box and continuing to do that, I think you don't want, the saying is you don't want to waste a good crisis, right? And so let's not waste this, situation that's in front of us at hand, because we're all going through it. We're locked in arms and solidarity, and we can all get better. You can send a meeting maker to schedule a mentoring call with somebody that you never had time to before, or you can be intentional about what you're putting on your calendar, and managing all of that. So those would be my words of encouragement.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's a good plug for the NAAC toolkit too. Folks can.
That's right. That's right. Free with your membership. So get on there to the NAAC community and become cross-trained and help us get better and continue to grow in our industry, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate your words of advice, and look forward to keeping in touch with you and the rest of the NAAC community.
Thank you for the time, Mara. Appreciate it.